All right, welcome everyone. Have you ever really stopped to think about what makes a product like an iPhone just so successful, or how a brand like Nike becomes this massive global icon? Well, in this explainer, we are going to pull back the curtain on the secrets behind incredible product design and really powerful branding. We're going to cover the key theories from your syllabus, and most importantly, I'll show you how to actually apply them to absolutely smash your exams.
Okay, let's get right into it. We're going to start our journey with the absolute blueprint of any great product, the design mix. From there, we'll look at how the world around us, social trends, actually shapes what gets made. Then, we'll do a quick exam workout with a case study, before switching gears completely to promotion. How do you get your amazing product noticed? And finally, we'll wrap up by unpacking the magic of branding and how it creates those die-hard loyal fans. So, first things first. How does a successful product even come to be? Well, it all kicks off with the design process, which, let me tell you, is about way more than just how something looks.
Okay, so let's lock in a really key term for you, product design. Now, this isn't just about doodling an idea on a piece of paper. Nope, it's the whole shebang. From that initial light bulb moment all the way to a finished product sitting on a shelf. Just think about the very first Dyson vacuum. James Dyson identified a problem. Vacuums that lost suction, and the entire design process was about solving that one specific problem for the customer.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Every single product you use, from your phone to your pen, is the result of this delicate balancing act between three core elements. And we call this the design mix. The best way to think of it is like a three-legged stool, right? If one of those legs is too short or too long, the whole thing just falls over. Nailing this balance is the secret sauce that separates a smash hit product from a complete and utter failure.
So the first leg of our stool, and you could argue it's the most important, is function. This is the absolute foundation. Does the product actually do what it's supposed to do? A waterproof jacket that gets you soaked is a complete functional failure. It has to be reliable, it has to be durable, and it has to be safe. And a huge part of function is ergonomics. That's just the science of making things comfortable and easy for us humans to use. If you get the function wrong, you're looking at a huge pile of returns and a completely destroyed reputation.
Just look at this incredible bicycle. What's the number one priority here? Function, of course. It's got to be super lightweight, aerodynamic, and reliable enough to win a race. But let's be honest, would anyone spend thousands on it if it looked like a clunky, ugly piece of metal? Absolutely not. And that's where aesthetics come into play. Then, can the company build it with all that amazing technology and still turn a profit? Well, that's the cost element. You see how all three are in this constant tug of war? That's the design mix in action, right there.
So the other two legs of our stool are aesthetics and cost. Aesthetics is all about how it appeals to our senses. How does it look? How does it feel? You know, that satisfying click of a really nice pen or the smell of new leather in a luxury car? That's all by design. It's part of the aesthetics. But then comes the reality check. Cost. Can we actually make this thing for a price that people will pay while still making a profit? Your textbook gives a perfect example. Apple originally wanted curved glass for the very first iPhone, but the cost to manufacture it was just insane. So the design had to change. Function and aesthetics had to take a back seat to the economic reality of cost.
So we've seen that the design mix is this internal balancing act for a business. But here's the thing, modern design doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's hugely influenced by what's going on in the world around it. And today, that means designers absolutely have to respond to powerful social trends, especially when it comes to being green and ethical.
You know, businesses today are facing what you could call a perfect storm of pressure. You've got customers who are demanding sustainable products. You've got governments bringing in stricter environmental laws. And you've got the media just waiting to expose any company that's seen as unethical. We're talking about massive questions here. Are you wasting resources? Are your factories polluting? Are the people in your supply chain being treated fairly? This has moved from being a nice-to-have to a major boardroom priority. So, what's the result of all this pressure? Well, it's forcing designers to get really creative and to think with a conscience. And this leads to 4 key design principles that you really need to know. First, waste minimization. Can we use less material? Maybe make the packaging smaller. Second is reuse. Can we design something, like a glass bottle, that can be used again and again? Third is recycling. Can we make our product from recycled materials or design it so it's easy to recycle later? And fourth, ethical sourcing. Making sure our raw materials are coming from suppliers who treat their workers and the planet with respect. For a fantastic real-world example, you don't have to look any further than Dell.
They're not just hoping you recycle your old computer, they've actually built a whole system to make it happen. They call it a closed-loop supply chain. They actively go out and collect old Dell products, they shred the plastic, and then they use that very same plastic to make parts for brand new computers. It's a brilliant example of designing for recycling, and it's a total win-win. It cuts down on waste, and it lowers their material costs.
And that's the key takeaway here. Adapting to these trends isn't just about being a good corporate citizen. It makes fantastic business sense. I mean, using fewer resources obviously lowers your costs. Environmentally friendly products are more popular, which drives up your sales. It can become a really powerful, unique selling point, and, of course, it makes the company look great.
Okay, we have covered a fair bit of theory on sustainable design, but the big question is how you use this knowledge to get the top marks in your exam. So let's put it to the test. We are going to break down a 10-mark question based on a really interesting case study about a company called Stanley Modular.
Okay, picture a normal construction site. It can be pretty chaotic and, honestly, incredibly wasteful. Stanley Modular's entire business model is designed to fix this. Their brilliant idea? Don't build the house on site. Build it in a factory. They prefabricate entire sections of a house in a really controlled environment. Using precise, computer-guided cutting, they use materials with amazing efficiency. And the result is just staggering. They reduce their wood waste by 90% compared to a traditional builder. That is a massive saving, both for the environment and for their bank account.
All right, let's talk tactics. How do you attack a big 10-mark question like this? To get into those top mark bands, you need a clear, logical structure. So here's a 4-step game plan. Step 1, define. You start by showing the examiner you know your stuff. You might say something like, adapting to social trends means a business changes its products or processes because of shifts in public attitudes, especially towards environmental issues. Step 2, apply. Now you bring in the evidence from the case study. For example, Stanley Modular has done this by prefabricating houses in a factory, which reduces their wood waste by 90%. Step 3, analyze. This is the so what part. Explain the consequences. This leads to a significant reduction in raw material costs for the business. And step 4, evaluate. This is where you get the highest marks. You weigh things up. While this cost saving is a huge benefit, it's also important to consider the high initial investment they needed for the factory. However, on balance, the benefits likely outweigh these costs because, and then you wrap it up with a clear, justified conclusion.
So, you've gone through the whole design process. You've balanced function, aesthetics, cost. You've even made your product sustainable. You've got an amazing product, but now what? If nobody knows it exists, it's just going to sit on a shelf. This is where the next P in the marketing mix comes in: promotion. It's time to tell the world about what you've made.
Now, promotional methods are basically split into two big categories. You've got above-the-line promotion, which is what most of us just call advertising, paying for an ad on TV or in a newspaper to reach a huge audience. And then you have below-the-line promotion, which is pretty much everything else, all the promotional stuff that the business has more direct control over.
Right. Take a look at this table. What it really shows you is that choosing where to advertise is all about trade-offs. You could put an ad on primetime TV and reach millions of people, but it'll cost you an absolute fortune. Or you could use internet ads to target a really specific type of person, but you risk just annoying them with pop-ups. So what's the right answer? Well, the truth is there isn't one. The best way to advertise depends completely on who you're trying to reach, what you're selling, and of course, how much money you have in your budget.
Below-the-line promotion gives a business a massive toolkit to play with. You've got sales promotions like buy one, get one free, or coupons, which are great for getting a quick boost in sales. Then there's public relations or PR. That's more of a long-term game, all about building a good reputation by doing things like sponsoring a local team or getting positive stories in the news. And you've also got things like merchandising, direct mail, and personal selling. Each tool has a very specific job to do.
Okay, so we've looked at all these different ways to promote a product, but when you put them all together and you do it consistently over a long period of time, they start to build something much, much bigger and more powerful than just a single ad campaign. They start to build a brand. And that is what we're going to dive into in our final section.
So what even is a brand? It is so much more than just a cool logo or a catchy name. The best way to think about it is like a person's reputation. It's what people say about you when you're not in the room. A brand is basically the grand total of all the thoughts, feelings, and experiences a customer has with your product. It's that gut feeling they get whenever they see your logo or hear your name.
And this is why companies are willing to spend billions building their brand. A strong brand is like a business superpower. First, it just adds value. People will happily pay more for Nike trainers than a no-name pair. even if the actual shoe is pretty similar. This lets the business charge premium prices. But here's the really clever bit. A strong brand reduces something called price elasticity of demand. Now that's just a fancy way of saying that your loyal customers are much less likely to leave you for a cheaper competitor if you have to raise your prices. You've built a bond that's stronger than just the price tag.
So how do you actually build one of these powerful brands? Well, it doesn't happen overnight. It is a marathon, not a sprint. It usually starts with a unique selling point, a USP. What's the one thing you do better than anyone else? Then you need relentless, consistent advertising to really drive that message home. You can use sponsorship to kind of borrow the positive energy of a cool event or a winning sports team. And of course, in today's world, you use social media to have a direct conversation with your customers and turn them into a loyal community.
And that, believe it or not, brings us full circle. To finish up, I want to leave you with a really powerful idea that connects everything we've covered today. In the 21st century, the lines between product design and promotion are getting really blurry. A product's design, especially if it's ethical and sustainable, can become its single most powerful marketing tool. Think back to Stanley Modular. Their low-waste design isn't just a manufacturing process, it's a story, it's a brand identity. So the question for you to think about is, how can they, and other companies like them, turn that design story into their ultimate competitive advantage? That's where modern business gets really, really exciting.